That being said, I will proceed. Good morning. I am Mario Gangemi, the chairman of the MDTA Capital Committee, and will be conducting this morning's meeting. I hereby call the meeting of the Capital Committee to order. It is now 9:05 a.m. In accordance with the live streaming law, we are conducting this meeting via video conference, which is being live streamed on the MDTA Capital Committee page. As a reminder, we require that members of the Capital Committee have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. However, I will recognize we're having technical difficulties this morning, therefore the other members of the committee are on their phones. If they are here. The only one on the call that's video is me. To minimize background noise, we do ask everyone on the line keep your phones or computers mute until that point in time when you are presenting or answering, and we ask that you have your video and your audio on speaking. When we're done, you can turn the video off and put the audio on mute. At this time, there are no members of the public, elected officials, or media that are pre-registered to comment on today's meeting. Therefore, we can move on to item number 1, which is the meeting minutes of Thursday, April 7, 2022. I will note that it does list me as acting chair, and I think I'm the chair by that point. That may be the only thing I saw that we need to make. That's a big deal. So I will entertain a motion to approve those meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 7th?
I move. Member Cox.
Member Cox is moving. Is there a second?
Member Gaines. Member Gaines seconds it. You hear me? Jeez.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear us?
Member Gangemi, we can't hear you. No, still can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you. No, can't hear you. Would you like me to forward you the dial-in number? Thumbs up.
No audio, Member Gangemi.
Member Gaines?
Yes.
Why
I'm here.
don't you just, why don't you call for a vote, and then I think we can just move on while he's getting squared away.
What is it, Bill?
What I'm saying, go
I'm
ahead
in.
and call for the vote,
Oh, okay.
and then
That's-
go ahead and the meeting while he's getting squared
You
away.
can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, awesome. All right, so I'm in via telephone and computer, I guess.
Getting feedback.
All right, well, I'll do this. This is gonna drive me crazy.
Oh, my.
Member Mary, why don't you let Lee go ahead and just go ahead with
Yeah.
the meeting?
I was gonna suggest Selena call the roll call vote. I'll go to mute.
Okay, we have the minutes, acceptance of the minutes, first and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
He's calling.
Aye.
Go ahead. Member Enzer,
So,
Member
Pretty
Enzer,
sure
for the
there's-
roll call, if you could, press *6 and give us your vote.
Will, they've already voted.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it, Kim. Thank you.
oh, you want to have Jeannie wants to jump in there and start on the CTP process?
Sure. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here to provide the MDTA Capital Committee with an overview of the Consolidated Transportation Program process and an update on the additions to the capital program. This information will be presented to the board on May 19th, to the full board. Every year, the Maryland Department of Transportation issues the Consolidated Transportation Program report, which is Maryland's 6-year capital budget for transportation projects. The MDTA portion of the CTP presents ongoing and new capital projects for a 6-year period for MDTA facilities. The CTP is updated twice a year. After approval by the board members in June, the draft CTP is presented as part of the MDOT CTP tour. During the tour from September 15th to November 15th, the Secretary of Transportation visits each of the counties and Baltimore City to present the draft CTP. And these meetings provide the local legislators and the public an opportunity to communicate their priorities and concerns in person. And representatives from each of the MDOT business units are also available at the meetings to answer questions. The draft CTP is revised and submitted after board approval in November as the final CTP, which then becomes part of the governor's budget to the Maryland General Assembly in January. This process is required by statute and applies to MDTA as well as other MDOT business units. The CTP is divided into 3 parts: the construction program, major projects, development and evaluation program, major projects, and system preservation, minor projects. The construction program major projects, excuse me. So the major projects program includes ongoing projects and those projects which are scheduled to begin construction within the 6-year period. Only those projects that the MDTA can afford to complete, given the most recent revenue forecast, are included in the CTP. Project work phases included in the CTP are engineering, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. The Maryland Transportation Code requires that the CTP include a report that identifies each major capital project. Specified information about each major project in the development or construction phase is required, including the amount of funds requested for the 6-year period, the total estimated cost of the project, explanation of significant changes in cost, scope, design, or schedule, and a purpose and need summary statement that includes a general description, why the project is necessary, how it satisfies state goals, and the location of the project. And this information is presented in the form of a project information form, which we refer to as PIFs, for each capital project, And the PIFs are included in the published draft and also in the final CTP. And if you'll turn to attachment A, attachments A and B are two PIFs from the 22 to 27 final CTP. So attachment A is the PIF for the I-95 JFK Highway Express Toll Lanes Northern Extension. You see that it indicates that it's the primary construction in the primary construction program. There's a map that shows the location. The state goals are listed, and this particular project will provide economic opportunity and reduce congestion, and also improve quality and efficiency. There's a description of the project, and then a purpose and need summary statements, which explains that the traffic projections indicate that this would improve safety if we do this project. And there's a status that shows that engineering and construction are underway, and there are no changes in the cost from the draft 22 to 27 CTP. And then, of course, in the box on the lower left is the budget information, gives the total estimated cost. And then over towards the right, it does show the 6-year total for this project. All right. Attachment B is for the Bay Bridge Rehabilitate Suspension Spans Westbound Bridge Project. And it shows the same type of information. But I wanted to point out that I wanted to show that this one has a significant change from the prior CTP. And that was that the cost was decreased by $2.9 million due to less than anticipated costs for structural steel, testing, maintenance of traffic, and the miscellaneous allowance item. And you can see in the status that this project is almost finished and that that it's actually open to service. Are there any questions on the PIFs? All right, I'm going to go back to the memo. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. Keep going. I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting feedback. I think I fixed that.
You sound fine.
Hey, Jenny, this is Member Cox. On the Bay Bridge, I know that the gate project is still underway to change lane gate from being hand done for the last umpteen years. Is that included in this or not?
If I may answer, yes, we are working on that project. And it is
I know
included.
that, but I'm saying it's included in this forecast.
It's not on this particular PIF. It has its own project.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, today's updates are just additions and subtractions and just describing the overall process. The full CTP will be presented in June, at which point
Right.
You'll see the updated cash flows on the two separate projects, the one for the Eastern Shore and Western Shore that are working on the automated lane closure system.
Great. Thanks, Will.
Although with Jim Harkness and myself here, I think we could answer any questions that you have about any of the projects in the CTP. So we'll go on with funding availability, and that's based on the MDTA's 6-year financial forecast, which considers estimates of traffic and revenue, the operating budget and capital budget, debt service payments, the potential need for future bond sales and toll increases, and compliance with financial standards. And new projects originate from 5 sources: the long-range capital needs, inspection findings, regulatory compliance, increased capacity needs, and local priority letters and legislative requests. In the fiscal year 23 to 28 draft CTP, to be presented for approval in June, as Will said, includes 3 new projects. First is the northbound overheight vehicle detection system improvements, and this is for the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel. It's funded for $47,900, or it will be when you approve it. It's funded for $47,900 for engineering. And this project is will deploy enhancements to the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel northbound overheight vehicle detection system. And it will begin with an assessment of the existing operations and investigation of the available technologies and operational schemes to improve the detection and notification of overheight vehicles. And this funding is requested for the preliminary engineering only. There will probably be an increase as the project moves along. The Fort McHenry Tunnel box girder preservation is the next new project, and that's for the bridges on the Fort McHenry Tunnel facility. It's funded for $150,000 for engineering only, and it will preserve the existing steel bridge structures through cleaning, painting, and repairing deteriorated portions of the Fort McHenry Tunnel box girders, especially the supporting girder ends. And then the third new project is the generator replacement at various facilities. This is a multi-area project funded for $240,000 for engineering, and it will replace 4 facility generators that are approaching the end of their life. And then this is at the end of their useful life. These generators are located at the Bay Bridge Administration Building, the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel Automotive Shop, the Kennedy Highway Substation, and the Hayden Bridge Administration Building. And with that, I am finished with this presentation and would like to answer any questions that you may have.
This is Mario, and I think sounds like I solved my feedback issue because I'm not hearing it myself repeated over and over again. Just a quick question on both those last 2 projects, and I think I know the answer to this. But when we say engineering only, the $150,000 and the $240,000, that's probably more of an inspection type thing by a third party to take a look and see what things need to be fixed and repaired and maintained and updated, not really a design thing.
Actually, the inspection part of it's already been completed under a different project. And so we do that before we even ask for the project funding because we want to make sure that anything that we ask for is necessary. And this original funding will pay for, it pays for beginning design. And the construction money will be added later.
Understood.
Okay.
And I have a question. Member Canjemi,
Yes, go for it.
the engineering we're referring to here now, that's coming out of those contracts we approved last month. Is that right?
The open-ended contracts.
Open-ended contracts we gave to like 6 or 7 engineers. Is that where that funding comes from?
Yes. Jim, I think you're on mute.
Thank you.
Yes, that's right. Those come from our architectural and engineering services contracts.
Thanks.
Hey, Jim, would you mind briefly elaborating on the inspection program and the operating budget contracts for that and how that's different than the PE money we fund?
Okay, so we also have architectural engineering services contracts for inspections, which we'll be covering in the next presentation. But essentially, those are funded. The inspections are funded out of our operating budget because we have to, make sure that we're inspecting our facilities, and then we're not sure what will turn into projects. But once we've identified issues, we then assess those and determine how to make projects out of the inspection findings. And once we are able to do that, we turn it into a capital project, and we use different AE contracts, which will then provide the design services to create the capital projects. And so those costs are then capitalized, which are the projects that you see here.
Does anybody else have questions?
I just wanted to add that the individual construction projects will be brought to you for approval as part of the procurement process.
Understood.
Okay.
Any other members have any questions for Jeannie? Jeannie, thank you for going through this. Appreciate it. And it sounds like we got a great segue to Mr. Harkness to go into the open-ended projects. So Jim, you're on.
All right, thanks. So in your materials, you'll find 9 slides for our presentation today on architectural engineering services contracts, as well as on-call construction contracts. So these are our work order-based contracts, and this was as per the request at our April Capital Committee meeting for us to sort of introduce you to the world of our contracts, so you can kind of understand the high-level view of all the contracts that we have out there. And so we'll step through the types of contracts and the numbers of contracts, and sort of show you how we monitor those and how we're using them, and certainly feel free to ask any questions you may have along the way. So on slide 2, you'll see the types of contracts that we have and the services. So we'll start with the architectural engineering, which we call the AE contracts. We have comprehensive, which run the full gamut of services that we require here at MDTA, and then we also have discipline-specific ones. So those would be specific to our engineering disciplines, such as environmental, structural, facilities, etc. The scope of these contracts, again, it's the comprehensives cover everything. Design-specific may tailor that to specific needs within the discipline, but generally, these are the contracts that are creating our design plans. They're doing the creation of our contract books for procurement. We also use these for analyses, studies, project management, supplementing our staff. We have program management, and a lot more that come out of these, including, as mentioned earlier, a certain segment of these run our inspections, our structural inspections. So generally, in value, it varies greatly, because we have discipline-specific ones, which are going to be lower in value. So that could be as low as $2 million, and then the large comprehensives go up to $18 million. And we generally ask for these services to be provided for 5 years under these contracts. The next type of contract, we're sort of breaking this out. This is the construction management inspection. It's also A&E contracts, but we refer to these as the CMI. So the scope on these is tailored to our needs in construction. So we pick up with pre-construction services. We then, of course, carry out our inspections, monitoring and documenting the contract performance. We do testing. We pay for testing out of these, compliance, environmental programs, permitting, and we also run our construction safety program out of these contracts. So these contracts have a range of value, so from 9 to 16, so a bit higher than our discipline-specific ones. And again, the duration on our CMI contracts, we typically use 5-year duration. Moving on to slide 3, getting into away from the AE services and into our on-call construction contracts. So we put these together as discipline-specific. So each of our engineering disciplines procures on-call construction contracts to deal with emergencies and some of the inspection findings that they would have. The value of these contracts, again, ranges pretty significantly from as low as 1.5 million to as high as 12, and 12 would be for our structural on-calls. The duration of these contracts varies by the disciplines, and so we generally, are somewhere between 3 and 5 years for these contracts. This is a good opportunity for us to have MBE and SBR participation. So at the bottom of the slide, just tried to summarize the number, the information on some of these contracts. So currently, we have 50 active AE contracts, and that's, again, including comprehensive and discipline-specific contracts. For CMI, we have 25 CMI contracts that are active. We have currently 4 SBR contracts, and just sort of among these contracts, we have between 40 and 50 subcontractors among those contracts, for MBE and VSBE. And then for our on-calls, we have 10 active on-call contracts, on-call construction contracts. All right, if we move on to slide 4, you'll see a little bit of our, some information on our engineering AE comprehensive contracts. This is 2 of the sets in the table here. Just sort of shows how we track a little bit of the usage of these contracts to see how we're spending and how much time we have. On the left is a graph that's trying to display the time that we have on these contracts. So at the top of that graph is the set of contracts which you approved last month, and so obviously those are still waiting for a notice to proceed, but they would end in June of 2027. Then we have the 2 existing sets of comprehensive contracts. The first one we call the AE 3030, and then we have an AE 2790 series. And so the AE 30 is set to expire in June of next year, and the 2790 is set to expire in December of next year. So there's time left on those, but if we move to slide 5, you can see how we are utilizing those, the funds available, the budgets in those, and why a new round of the 9 contracts that you approved last month was necessary. So the blue bars are the contract budget, and the yellow bars are the percent that we have committed, the percent funding committed. So you can see on the right side of the graph, the AE 3030 series of contracts, that's the one that's set to expire next June, but the overall commitment of those funds is high. On the left side, you can see as well that that set of contracts, the 2790 series, also, a good portion of the funding all committed. So I would note that the reason that the left side of the chart is so high in value is because we actually had modifications on these contracts to modify their values. So we modified all the contracts for both time and funding a little while ago. So that's why the values there are so much higher than on the right side. Okay. We'll move on to slide 6, where we're covering the CMI service contract now. So here are the 3 sets of active contracts for CMI. So this is 25 contracts. On the left side, the light blue that's the set of the oldest set of contracts. Those contracts are, as you can see, basically fully committed. And so in the middle, though, is our NICE contracts. So those were specific CMI contracts that are set up for the NICE. So you can see we're around 50% committed on average for those 3 contracts. And then on the right side of the screen is the most recent CMI contracts. So we have good capacity left on those, but we were talking with Joe Jakowski recently and just sort of making note that we're starting to get the 50% committed, and with the time that the AE procurement takes, we would start to look for a new procurement sometime later this year. Start that process so that we're ready with new contracts when these are fully committed. And if we move on to slide 7, you can see a timeline of how these CMI contracts play out. So the older set is ready to expire in September of this year. And so you can see the blue lines terminating there, and then we created overlap with the green lines so that we would not have a gap in our inspection contracts. So that's why you'll see that there. And then if we, as I mentioned, if we get ready with our procurement, we'll be able to overlap those greens 2 years from now. Okay, if we move on to slide 8, this is a table listing our current on-call construction contracts. So you can see in the description each of the disciplines having one or more on-call contracts to deal with their construction needs, their emergency needs for maintaining our assets. We listed the duration there, so generally we go with somewhere between 3 and 5, and with the year options, it may get us out there to 4 or 5 years for these. You can see that some of these contracts are lower in value, as low as 1.5 there, and then the larger structural on-call go up to, as I said, $15 million. Okay. That's the end of my presentation. So if you guys have any questions, or if I, missed the mark on anything, please let me know.
Jim, thank
Chairman, I have
you
a
for.
question.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, Jim, I guess when you give these contracts out, obviously there are multiple contracts as you presented. Is there many modifications as far as coming back because they're short on, or there's been changes as far as amounts they're expending, or are there many comebacks as far as asking for requests for adjustments in their contracts that have been awarded?
No, once we've awarded their amount, and again, it's based on their rating during our procurement process. Once
Right.
we've assigned their amount, they're generally set, and we work to stay within that budget. They need to work to stay within that budget. The reason that we went back for the modification that I mentioned to the 2790 series was because we were at a point where we were able to move forward with the express toll lane project, and so we needed to bring a lot of resources to bear really quickly, and we weren't quite at the point where we were able to move forward with the new or more recent solicitation that you saw on there. So we had to come back for a modification, and that's why that modification happened for those. Generally, we try not to perform modifications for funding. If we modify, it's usually for time so that we fully utilize the capacity that we were given and granted by the approval of those contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Member Gaines, got any questions? Member Unser? Well, that being said, Jim, thank you for doing this. I think this gives us a good comprehensive look at all the different open-ended type contracts that we have. Probably slide presentation, we should reference back to when you come forward with another one, just so we can sort of fit the little picture into the big picture. So thank you for doing this. I think this is helpful.
Sure thing.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. Well,
Thank you, Jim.
Actually, I do want to say one thing, closing out to today's meeting, and I already mentioned this to Mr. Pines. I actually talked to a friend of mine who gave me a very glowing report when he called into the Easy Pass Center with a problem. And he said of all the different phone calls, and he's not a young man, he's in his 70s, so he's made many of these problem phone calls in his lifetime, and he said it was the absolute best phone conversation he's ever had in addressing an issue. So I wanted to pass that on. There's some folks on the phone who and I please ask that you pass that on. So I'm hearing good stuff, despite what the press may want to put out there about the Easy Pass, Maryland. I thought that was great, and I've heard that from more than one of my friends, but this gentleman specifically cited it as being the best phone call he'd ever had on that type of issue. So congratulations to MDTA, and let's keep up the good work. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second, Member Gaines, second.
Member Gaines, second. Member Cox on the move. So all in favor, say aye.
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 I think I heard all of us. So I think that's it. Thank you very much. And sorry for my issues with the mic. It was working and then it stopped working. I don't know why. It's brand new. So, well, we'll figure that out going forward. So thank you very much. Everybody have a safe